Good morning, everyone. I'm Mahalani Richardson.
And I'm Kenny Choi. It's Tuesday, February 15th. Time now is 6:04. Weather and traffic coming up in 4 minutes, but as you can see, the governor is here.
Kenny?
Governor Abercrombie, good to have you with us this
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning, aloha.
Well, $850 million in debt with a laundry list of projects.
That's right. And Governor Neil Abercrombie faces an uphill battle as he calls for cuts to major state programs. Now, just last week, the governor made an appeal to state lawmakers to support his plan to freeze public worker retirement benefits and reduce the amount of Medicare payments covered by the state. It's a controversial plan that has state workers arguing that they've already sacrificed enough.
All right, so here to answer that criticism is Governor Neil Abercrombie. And Governor, of course, thanks for joining us here this morning.
Let's Happy to be with you, Kenny.
Very good to have you and good to see you.
Thank you.
Let's first talk about making some of the changes and cuts to state pensions as well as Medicare. No surprise that there's been opposition to this. What happens if...
But there's been lots of support.
Absolutely.
There's been lots of support. There's a silent majority out there that understand we're all in this together. The reason we're coming on a minute or two later than we planned is because the president has just been on television, coming from Washington, saying exactly the same thing that I said. In fact, just a quick quote, we are doing what we must do and what we can't do without. We have to make tough choices. For example, on the medical side, we're adults. All the children of this state and across the nation are utterly and totally dependent on the good judgment of the adults around them. So when it comes to medical care, I'm putting children first, the keiki first. The adults have to come after that. These are the kind of tough choices that we have to make. We're either all in this together, Kenny, or we're not.
Sure, there are people who support it, your proposal, and those who oppose it. But what happens if it doesn't pass? Then what?
We have to balance the budget. We don't have any choice but to act like adults. We don't have any choice but to do this together. Now, if some want to benefit at the expense of others, that has to be decided by the legislature. But I think we can do this. I think there is a silent majority, and that majority that has been reaching out to me as I go through my daily activities and saying, look, we know this is tough. We know we all have to put our share in, but we're willing to do it. They need to contact the legislators. They need to contact those legislators and let them know that we're going to act like responsible people.
And Governor Abercrombie, speaking of the expense of others, you know, some of the union members want a raise, an increase in the general excise tax. And here's what one UPW member had to say.
Everybody give up 1%. Take care of our state, take care of our old people, and the people that service our state.
And Governor, would you support an increase in the general excise tax, even though in your campaign you promised that you would not raise taxes? And then in our morning news, you clarified that when you said that you did not want to raise taxes, you clarified that it was the general excise tax.
Of course it was the general excise tax. At the time we were talking of those numbers, the numbers were less than $200 million. That was the figure that was put forward to the legislature last year. That has ballooned to over $850 million. We've picked up a 27% increase in the last year and a half or so just on Medicaid alone. That's the share of the medical costs that the state has to pay. The costs are ballooning out of sight. If we do what I am suggesting, that everybody does a little bit of their share, including me, on their overall pension income, most people will not be affected.
But would you resort to raising the general excise tax?
No, most people will not be affected, and it may be that when we get to the general excise tax, even that won't be enough. So it doesn't matter. If you just take an increase in the general excise tax alone, that may not even get us barely past even. We are now $7.4 billion in the hole on the retirement system alone. If we do not significantly reduce the unfunded liability, which a GE tax by itself will not do, the very bonding authority of the state is in jeopardy, which means everybody's taxes will go sky high in terms of what it costs to do anything in the state.
Governor, I also want to get your reaction on the sugar tax. You proposed it. The state Senate committee dropped that tax. So what's your reaction to that?
Well, I'm an old timer in the legislative process. That which was supposedly dead rises again. I call it the Lazarus effect. So we'll see about that. Here's another example of acting like like adults. I'm not saying anybody doesn't have to drink sugar drinks, but you have to pay for it. Look at what we're dealing with child obesity. Look at what we're dealing with diabetes. These things, these diseases cost us tremendous amount of money. Of course it's a tax. It's a tax in order to see to it that we can pay for basic medical services.
Does this show that the lobbyists have just too much power then?
No, of course not. What it shows is that people need to let their legislators know what it is they're doing. When people are against something, they're going to show up. Those are organized efforts that are part of our constitutional process. I've been part of them myself. That's all fine.
And Governor,
but
I have to ask you
the majority is going to
about,
have to let them know by contacting their legislators.
Governor, I have to ask you about the civil unions because the Senate is poised to approve it today. It looks like it has the votes, and you have vowed to sign it.
Yes.
What are the implications of a civil unions bill if it becomes law?
The first implication is what we've just been talking about. Something that supposedly never can pass, something that supposedly does not have support, turns out to have support, turns out to be able to be passed. So the same thing with civil unions. I think what will happen there, this is a constitutional issue, a civil rights issue. Once it passes, once it's signed, you'll be surprised at how quickly things will go smoothly.
All right, Governor Abercrombie, thanks for joining us here this morning.
Thanks for the opportunity for us to reach out and let people know that they can be heard.
All right. Thank you very much, for your time. And, of course, you can see this interview again. You can see it on our website, kitv.com/thismorning. We'll post that interview with the governor at around 8 a.m. this morning.